Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 3 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 10, Collision Course, which I have just finished watching. And once again, as always, this show delivers yet again another fantastic episode. I really enjoyed this one a lot. It was really good. Bits more leaning towards the drama side of things, but this was still very enjoyable to watch. And from my understanding, we are now 3 episodes away from season 3 concluding, which also means that we are 3 editions away from wrapping up this season 3 review series. And of course, as everybody knows already, there is a lot of uncertainty whether or not Superman and Lois will get picked up for a 4th season, and there's also possibilities that season 3 could end on a potential cliffhanger. We'll just have to wait and see, really, but as I've explained already, I personally would love to see this show continue and get picked up by HBO Max and turn into a Max original because this show is so good and it will be a damn shame to see it just end this way. I think Superman and Lois still has a lot more shelf life, and it's very rare, as I've explained in the past, that you have so far 3 very strong seasons. Usually, from what I've seen with the Arrowverse shows, things start to tend to go downhill round about season 3, or the infamous 4, if you will. But this show has been absolutely tremendous. I've been enjoying season 3 so much, and I really want to see the show continue. But that's going to be for another conversation for another time. We've still got plenty to talk about here, so let's get to it. So, as always, I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then after that, we'll just get straight into talking about episode 10. So, as we saw previously in episode 9, we were treated to a series of flashbacks with Lois and Clark, which centered around a special red dress that Clark bought for Lois to wear to a gala for her nomination for a journalism award. And we also see in the present Lois is still going through her chemotherapy and she starts to give away her stuff, including the special red dress that Clark bought for her. And we also see Bruno Mannheim is held at the DoD with John Henry Irons interrogating him and demanding that he turns over all of the stolen DoD assets in exchange for visiting Pia, aka Onomatope. With Mannheim's lawyer present, Mannheim refused and had an attack on John Henry and his daughter Natalie, but they pulled back due to witnesses seeing this attack going on. And we also see John retaliates by leading a DoD raid on Mannheim's apartment. And we also saw Mannheim and Superman having a meeting, and this led to Superman and Henry Irons clashing over how they should deal with Bruno Mannheim. We also saw Jonathan at first give advice of not seeing Mateo to Natalie, but he has a change of heart later on and apologizes and arranges for Mateo to come to Smallville and meet with Natalie. We also saw Mannheim revived Miller and sends him to attack John Henry Irons, thus wrecking his house and Main Street. And we also see Henry Irons kills Miller in self-defense, which of course rubs Superman up the wrong way and says to Henry Irons that there is always another way to solve the problem. And we also saw in episode 9, we saw at the end, we saw Mannheim shows Mateo the body of Bizarro and explains to him that he's going to use Bizarro's DNA to create a cure for his mother, Pia. And we also saw at the end, Lois finally puts on the red dress that Clark bought her and flies with Clark. And that's how we ended episode 9. And it pretty much helped set up episode 10. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 10, Collision Course. So, this episode begins with Lois finally finishing her round of chemotherapy and is about to have her operation to remove the remaining cancer tissue. Due to this, she is trying to build up some good karma and finally talk some sense into Pia, who is being held at the DOD. We finally see the secret that Pia and Bruno Mannheim are married, as it is printed in the Smallville Gazette, and Lois decides to visit Pia at the DOD, where she is being kept to stop her from endangering other people, including her own family. She is kept behind barriers that blocks her superpowers, and she's in a rough state when Lois visits her, seemingly days away from passing. We also see at the same time Clark is trying to bond with the boys and plans a night out with them, but Jonathan and Jordan decide they have something better to do. They decide to go partying with alcohol organised by the Smallville seniors. Clark, of course, is not aware of this, and he even buys tickets for a wrestling event in Metropolis. Jordan and Jonathan decline his invitation, and Clark is crushed by the fact that his own sons don't want to spend time with him anymore. He is not cool to his sons, despite being Superman. Aww. We also see Lana Lang has a meeting with Governor Wexler, and the two ladies in power have pretty similar backgrounds. Both are divorced and single mothers trying to juggle personal lives and successful political careers. This meeting means a lot to Lana, who hopes this could kickstart her career from small town mayor to even becoming Congress. And we also see in this episode the fact that Chrissy is covering the meeting complicates matters, especially as Chrissy is now dating her ex-husband Carl Cushion. But Lana is willing to look past that. Kyle is no longer her problem. She is willing to be the better person. Meanwhile, Chrissy is suffering from a content drought in the Smallville Gazette. She has nothing published and hopes that the governor's meeting will be enough to fill the quota. Kyle asks her whether she is willing to publish the story related to superhumans in Smallville. Kyle has a theory that someone in Smallville has superpowers and has been meddling in his works for quite some time, and he even presents her with photographic evidence. Now, of course, at first, Kyle thinks that the person who's got superpowers is Jonathan, little knowing that it's actually Jordan. He presents pictures of ice from the crime scenes, which was, of course, done by Jordan, and he says he has pretty solid evidence and he wants Chrissy to look into it. Not knowing that Chrissy knows that Clark is secretly Superman, Chrissy refuses to do it and answers with slight ridicule. She admits finally that she doesn't want to uncover the identity of the person who has helped Smallville so much. This, of course, angers Kyle, but he drops the matter, for now anyway. Lois finally has a chance to talk to Pia, and Pia agrees to make amends to everyone. First and foremost, she hopes to set a good example for her son by admitting her wrongs to Lois. Lois has her cell phone set to record and hopes to get Pia to confess to her crimes and that she framed Lex Luthor. Everything is going well until Lois notices that Pia is lying to her. Lois asks whether Boss Moxie was aware that she and Bruno were dating at the time when he employed both of them. Pia answers that he wasn't aware. In fact, she and Bruno were dating long before Lex Luthor killed Moxie. Lois knows that this is a lie and confronts Pia with the facts. Lois tells Pia that she knows that Lex's confession tape has been tampered with. She tells her she knows that it's not Lex's voice admitting to the crime. Pia instead used her sound-based powers to imitate Lex's voice. Instead of denying it, Pia tells Lois that the world is better off without Lex Luthor. She admits that in all her life she was afraid of one person and one person only, and that's Lex Luthor. She also says to Lois he is a monster and deserves to be put behind bars. Lois disagrees with Pia and feels awfully guilty for helping out, putting an innocent man behind bars. Well, there's a first. Lex Luthor innocent. Who'd ever thought that? But Pia remains steadfast that she won't admit to anything. At the same time, Mateo is getting ready to visit Pia. Bruno, of course, gives Mateo the cure he developed to save Pia's life. We also see in this episode Lana and Governor Wexler had a meeting and she felt confident in her abilities to impress the older politician. The governor is likewise impressed with the state of how Smallville is and tells Lana that a bright future is ahead of her. She inquires how Lana's marriage ended and recounts her own story. Her husband left her for a younger floozy, but it's okay because he was only a deadweight. Ouch. Lana feels uncomfortable with this conversation, considering that Chrissy, who is now currently dating Kyle, is merely a few steps behind them and has heard everything. At the senior party, George Dean Jr. monopolizes Sarah's time, which is not something that Jordan is happy to see. In fact, Sarah is being quite rude to Jordan and expresses her annoyance at him joining their private conversation. Jordan is, of course, crushed and decides to confront Sarah about the matter. He confesses that he regrets the day he ever fell in love with her. Oh, low blow. At the same time, Jonathan and Candace are spending some quality time together, and just as Jordan is about to leave, the police come attempting to raid the place and arrest all teens at the site for underage drinking. Sarah and George Dean Jr. decide to make a break for it. Sarah is behind the wheel, and the two manage to get away from the cops. But Sarah has clearly been drinking, and a deer jumps on the road at the last second to avoid the deer hitting. Sarah swerves to the side, losing control of the car, and just in the nick of time, Jordan comes to the rescue and saves both George and Sarah. Both, thankfully, are not hurt. We also see Kyle was among the first responders, and he is angry at Sarah because of her reckless drinking and driving. He gets even more angry when George reveals that someone with superpowers has saved them. Sarah, of course, denies this and says she saw nobody and doesn't know what George is talking about. Both George and Kyle are angry at Sarah for obviously hiding the truth. We see at the DoD, Lois decides once again to question Pia and beg for her confession. Pia this time breaks and says she will admit to everything, but she wants to see her son first. Mateo enters the room and the barriers are dropped. Oh boy, here it comes. While he is hugging Pia, she takes one of his machetes from his sleeve as a tool to break out, and Mateo injects him with the cure that Bruno Mannheim created using the corpse of Bizarro Superman. We see Pia is now cured and is no longer going to die. Wow. Wow. Kaya reveals to Lana what happened, and Lana cuts the meeting short because she has to deal with the situation as soon as possible. Chrissy tries to make Lana look good, but the governor seems to have made her mind up already. Oh boy. And we see Kyle gets more angry when he realizes that Sarah is lying about who the mysterious person with powers is and storms out. Back at the Kent household, Jordan is panicking and calls for Clark. At first, he reveals what happened, and Clark tells him not to worry. The most important thing is he did the right thing and saved 2 lives. We then see Jordan reveals that he had been drinking, and this angers Clark and decides to ground Jordan for a month, both for drinking and refusing to spend time with him. Oh, damn. We then see Pia is now cured and normal, and we see her threaten Lois to help her escape, and she destroys the whole DoD with her powers. Pia takes Lois hostage, and we see this is one more proof that Pia is indeed a murderer and doesn't care what happens as long as she has the upper hand. We see now that she is cured, she is back to being her old self again, onomatopoeia in full force. Back at Smallville, Clark hears a distress call, but he's unable to act on it because Kyle arrives at their house and wants to speak to Jonathan urgently. Kyle is convinced that Jonathan is the one with superpowers, as all evidence points to him. Clark decides that we will talk about this tomorrow and flies off as Superman, much to the shock and surprise of Kyle Cushion, who by that point didn't even know that Clark Kent is really Superman. Superman arrives at the DoD, but Pia is already long gone. She has made it to Metropolis to the secret lab where Bizarro Superman is being held and is reunited with her husband and her son. And that's how we end episode 10. Overall, fantastic episode as always, very enjoyable. I'm very interested to see how Kyle Cushion is going to react to the news that Clark Kent is really Superman. This has been a long time coming. Personally, I think he should have found out maybe at the end of season 2, but the fact that he knows now is really interesting and it really changes everything. How is he going to react to everybody else knowing the secret but him? Peter is now cured. We kind of saw that coming. Where does the Bizarro Superman fit into all of this? We don't know, but this was very good and very enjoyable, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the rest of the remaining 3 episodes is going to play out. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 10? Did you enjoy it? What was your reaction to Pierre being cured now? Were you shocked at this? How did you feel about Matteo playing a part in curing his mother? Do you think that he will turn bad now, or do you think he could still turn against his parents? And also, now that Carl Cushion knows the truth, what do you think he's going to do with this information? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 3 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 11, which I am very much looking forward to seeing and talking about, especially with the way this episode played out and the way it ended. It's going to be epic, and I can't wait. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.